Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kelly Snow. I'm filling in for Amanda Leach with the JMU Alumni Association. Can everybody hear me okay? If you can type in the chat that you can see and hear everything. Okay, good. I'm filling in for Amanda, so this is the first time I've ever done this, so we are going to hope that it all goes smoothly. I appreciate everybody's patience as we jump in here, but we have a very exciting webinar for you today. We are excited to bring you this alumni webinar program with the goal of providing career-related resources that help you develop your professional self. You will be receiving a follow-up survey after the webinar, so please take the time to give us the feedback so we can continue to improve this webinar program. A couple housekeeping items before we get started. Just make sure that your microphones are muted. There are two chat options. There's a Q&A and a chat box. To ask a specific question, if you could use the Q&A feature, that would be great. To respond to the presenter's feedback, please use the chat feature. Feel free to tweet during the event at hashtag JMUAAwebinar. And we will also be recording this webinar so that you can access it online 1 week from today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker. Today we have Meghan Ely with us today. She's OFD Consulting owner who combines in-the-trenches event experience with a love of marketing and PR to empower her clients to take her businesses to new heights. Meghan is a WeddingWire Education Expert as well as a regular contributor to Wedding Planner Magazine, Book More Brides, Catersource, and SpecialEvents.com. Meghan represents wedding professionals throughout the world and has recently joined press with Martha Stewart Weddings, Brides.com, Out.com, The Knot, and Today.com, among others. She is a sought-after speaker, presenting regularly at a number of national and international conferences. She is the National Conference Education Chair for the National Association for Catering Events and the Director of Communications for the Wedding Industry Professionals Association National Board. Meghan is an adjunct professor in the Mass Communication Department at Virginia Commonwealth University, specializing in public relations. So with that, I am going to let Meghan take it away.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. We're going to go ahead and share my desktop. Hopefully everyone can see here. As you can hear, my voice is a little off today, so I will do my best to to keep it going. I woke up with a spot of laryngitis this morning, so apologies in advance, but I will assure you I've had about 3 gallons of hot tea. So, so today we'll be talking about one of my absolute favorite topics, Ready, Set, Network, building your career with the help of your buddies. And it really is an honor to be here. I am, in addition to being the owner of OFD Consulting, I'm a proud JMU alum. I graduated in 2003, just a shout out to the class of 2003, as well as my friends over at SCOM, which is the degree I actually graduated with. So now I'm going to start with the talk of, I was like pulling folks in here with a story. We're going to talk about martinis here for a second, which is actually, if you saw the speaker's description, hopefully that caught your interest. But the fact of the matter is, my life in networking, and really my life in the wedding industry, which is where I specialize, began with a single martini. And if we're all being honest here, it really was like 3 martinis. And I'm going to take you back to 2003, 2004. I had graduated with a degree in SCOM. I specialized in public relations. I had a brief tenure out in Portland, Oregon, and decided to make my way to Richmond, Virginia. Now, I am from New Hampshire originally, and so moving to Virginia as a whole, I didn't have a lot of friends in the region, especially in Richmond. Sad to say, this is kind of sad, I only had 2 friends to start. One was my boss, which I realized in explaining that how kind of that sounds a little pathetic, but she was my friend. And then my roommate, Adam, who was actually an old high school friend from New Hampshire, so he was pretty useless in terms of helping me meet more people in town. But I had taken a part-time job with a local estate called Maymont. It's a beautiful wedding venue, and I worked there part-time while I spent a year in AmeriCorps. And I'd always been drawn to the wedding industry, but I also still loved PR, and I loved everything I learned at JMU as well. And you'll kind of see how that all comes to play in a little bit. So we're probably, I would say, early winter 2004 at this point. I'd only been in town a few months at this point. And there were two things that were very clear to me for just a few months of being in the wedding industry. One is these were my people. I love wedding professionals. They're mainly extroverts. They're friendly. They obviously love having a good time. They're in the business of parties. But also, it was very clear to me that relationships really mattered in this industry, which I think can be said for a lot of industries. And so I saw the importance of putting myself out there, which is no easy feat when you're 22, almost 23 years old. And, at this point, I'm just learning how to be an adult at this point. In fact, I had to go out and meet people was terrifying. I mean, when I was an RA, I was an ambassador. I mean, friends just came easily at JMU. So the idea of having to go out was absolutely terrifying. But there was a local bridal association in town, and I had begged Maymont to let me go. Pardon me. They hadn't done a ton of networking in the last several years, but I said, listen, I'd really love the chance to meet more people. I think it's going to help us out in the long run, and they happily obliged. And not only that, but after a few months of me going to this bridal association, we actually hosted one of their meetings. And just prior to the meeting taking place, the owner at the time, Susan Benson, announced that she was hosting the voting and the elections for the inaugural board and also the PR chair. And me hearing the words PR and the fact that I could use my major, which I love so much, I was so excited to consider doing it, but I was terrified. I mean, I was the baby of the group, and the idea of doing any of that just horrified me. I love public speaking, but the idea of being in front of people at that age, I couldn't even fathom it. And so I skipped. I decided, you know what, we're hosting it. I'm going to focus on that. I'm not going to put my name in the mix for that. Well, fast forward to the night, and this is where the martinis come in. So I'm on my home base. They have these martinis. I don't even drink martinis usually, but it was like those ones with cordials and whipped cream and chocolate. So I would swear, I swear very little alcohol was probably in it. It was more of a placebo effect, but I was just kind of chatting with people. I had 2 or 3 martinis, which at the time didn't really do a lot of damage. And so I thought, you know what, I got a little liquid courage, and I swear I went right up to Susan Benson and I said, I would like to be on the list for the PR chair. Now at this point, the votes, or excuse me, the list was already created, so I had to be a write-in vote. And I don't know what possessed me, but I did my little speech in front of everybody, and I'm not even sure how it turned out, but I ended up, or how this worked out, but I ended up winning, which was really a surprise to me, and it was an honor. I crack up to this day. I always joke that I don't drink at networking events now because I'm going to end up on somebody's board before I know it. It's too dangerous. And so I share that because that moment absolutely led to all good things in my career. And that's not, I mean, I am not overstating when it comes to that. Because I was brought on in a leadership position, I got a ton more visibility in the marketplace. People got to know me as a person. I saw an increase. I worked at a venue, so I saw an increase in referrals almost immediately. Everywhere I moved over the next 6 years of different venues, I brought my group with me. So I had this tribe of people I'd been working with. They sent me referrals. I sent referrals back. I had a great referral network myself. I was always the first to hear of new job openings, which that's how I was able to climb the ladder into a 5-star property so quickly in such a short amount of time was because my contacts with the Bridal Association helped me out with that. And then when I decided to go out on my own in 2009, Richmond Bridal Association, because at that point I had, I'd done PR chair, I'd been on the board, they hired me to actually run the association for my first year with OFD. So they ended up being one of my first clients. So everything that came after, all the things really stemmed from this networking opportunity that I had from the very beginning and really going for it. And so that's always inspired me over the years, and I'm very humbled with the fact that networking has absolutely built everything that's led me from where I started to now being a nationally recognized wedding publicist. I speak, on the regular, and it all goes back to those couple of martinis in 2004. So I love starting with that one. In today's discussion, we are going to talk about networking. And listen, there's a lot of great content out there on networking. Furthermore, there's a lot of bad tips out there about networking. So my goal is today we're going to keep it fun, a little more informal. I'm going to welcome questions at the end. But I want to tell you about some of my observations, things that are absolutely not working for people that they think they are, and some tips to get you started as you go out on your own. And this is really meant for people. You could be right out of school all the way to a very established veteran in your industry who's looking to increase brand awareness. So we'll go ahead and kind of cover the gamut here. And like they said at the end, Kelly said, we'll save some time for questions as well. So first, I like call #no. Let's talk about the things that really aren't being done well out in the networking world. I think that we get inundated with all sorts of tips and tricks and things that you should be doing. And the fact of the matter is, it's all not great advice. So I'd love to cover some of the ones that really have jumped out at me over time. First of all, people think, well, I go to networking because it's fun. And I know if anyone out there knows me, they're going to call shenanigans on me immediately, because you can see here's just a few pictures of me. I clearly love to network, and I also apparently have an affinity for photo booths as well. But the fact of the matter is, you don't go networking because it's a good time. And I see too many of my clients over the years, I do a lot of marketing consulting and PR consulting, people who go to events because, well, it's a nice night out with the girls, or, you know, I've got my family at home, it's nice to take a break and just be out with friends. I completely get that, guys. I have, you know, I'm married, I have a 3-year-old, 2 cats, a mortgage, all of that stuff. It's fun to escape for a night and do that, but you can't call that networking. The fact of the matter is, everything you do from a networking standpoint has to have a purpose. You know, back in the day, for me, there was just one networking association in town, the Richmond Bridal Association. Now there's a number of different opportunities in town, and I have to ask myself, why do I go to these? Is there a point, you know, why am I spending this time doing this? Because even if networking only costs you $25, $50 to go, or even free events, it's still a use of your time. And so what you have to do is every networking event coming out there, if you decide to move forward, you really need to best qualify them. At the very beginning, when you decide to really jump into networking, it's perfectly acceptable to go to as much as you possibly can. When I first I went on my own with OFD Consulting, I still went to a lot of my vendor industry type association stuff, but I wanted to branch out. So I'm still in Richmond, Virginia now. I started going to Chamber of Commerce. There were some B&I groups. And for me, at the end of the day, some of them simply weren't a fit for what I was looking to do, but I wouldn't have known that until I actually took the time to go to them, get to know the folks, and really determine if it's the best for me. Which leads to the question, well, what in the world is the best event for me? Because it's not going to be as cut and dry for some people. You know, for us, we just had the one bridal association group for a long time. So here's the things you really need to think about. And some of them may sound obvious, but at the end of the day, a lot of people don't think about it. They just kind of arbitrarily sign up for things that sound like a good time. So really want you to think about the makeup of the attendees. Who's going to be there at the end of the day? Is it a direct channel to more clients? Is it a direct channel to get out more about your personal brand? Are you looking for a job and then people there are in a position to either hire you or refer you to hiring managers? It all depends on the makeup. You know, for me and what I do now, all of my networking, I'd say 99% of it is in the industry of weddings and special events. That's because if I walk into a room of 20, 40, 100, 2,000 people, most of them are maybe not my target audience, but they are absolutely people who could be in a position to hire me. And so I see a lot of value to that being a small business owner. So you'd want to ask yourself, is it filled with people that I already know? Are these people new to me, for example? Is it my target audience? Is it someone who can refer business to me? Also, their previous presence on social media. If this is an event that takes place on the regular, it could be Rotary clubs, B&Is, it could be Chamber of Commerce, young professional organizations. If it's a regular event, take a look on social media. Take a look at Instagram, take a look at Facebook, Twitter. anywhere where they have a presence, just to get a feel for the event itself. Was there a hashtag associated with it? Was there a lot of, engagement? Take a look at pictures from previous events. Was it set up well? Did it seem to be pretty, filled to capacity, or did it seem like a pretty busy group? Again, going back to who's my target audience. So it's one thing to ask yourself, what's the makeup of the attendees? It's another question of, okay, in my field of work and what I'm looking to do, who's my target audience, and does it match here? And in cost, of course, too, because after a while, things do start to add up. If you don't belong to particular associations, they might let you come as a non-member, but you very well could be spending more money to do that. And that starts to add up. Even if it's, $30 a month to start, that does add up over 12 months. So you have to make sure, at least on your side, that it works within, whether it's the marketing advertising budget that your company has, whether it's a budget as a small business owner that you have, or if you're looking for potentially a new job as well. I mean, you'd want to ask yourself, is this something I'm in a position to afford on a regular basis? Also, is there an educational component? Listen, this isn't as important for people. I will tell you, this is actually pretty important for me. I like to go to events that have some sort of speaker tied into it. One, I like to learn new things. Two, I like to see how other speakers present in how they present and how they work in front of an audience, so that I can learn to be a better speaker. So this isn't a priority for everybody, but I tend to prioritize most of my events to include education as well. And here's the big question. Does it help you reach your ultimate goals? I can't help but think back to a former client of mine a bunch of years ago, really great. She's a mom, she's got 2 kids, she's very successful at her full-time job, but she's also a very successful part-time photographer as well. And she kept going to the same events where her same friends were there, and every time we'd meet afterwards, I'd ask how things went. She'd sing the praises of the event, and I'd say, well, because, at this point she had hired me to help her book more business, and I said, well, the goal is to book more business. Did you get anything out of that, like referrals, potential? And she would always say, no, it just, I had a really good time though. And it was really hard to convert her and make her understand that if you have ultimate goals, a new job or a job at all for that matter, or I'm trying to build my own small business, or I'm trying to move up the corporate ladder, if you've got a point to get to, point A, what's going to get you there? And if the networking events that you're currently going to, or the ones that you're trying, aren't going to get you there, no matter how good of a time it is, no matter how fancy the photo booth is, then you really need to start expanding to other networking opportunities. Even myself, kind of going back, I just attended a JMU alumni conference a few weeks ago, and I had the pleasure of seeing some old friends and fellow PR professionals, but I met this great gentleman, and we chatted about PR for a while, and I think he was about 10 years out of school past me, so very established, very well respected, and he really pushed me to start going to PRSA, which is the Public Relations Society of America, and I said, why would I do that if I'm going to events that puts me in front of my target audience of people who want to book me? And he made a very good point that at 7 years in the game here, I absolutely should be going to things where I can meet other specialists, I can better my craft, maybe we can refer business to one another. So, even myself, someone who speaks on networking all over the place, can learn from that and say, is it helping me reach my ultimate goals as well? Also, what's the return in the long run? Sure, you go to one event and it's maybe their summer beer and barbecue fest, for example, and maybe you don't get a lot of that first meeting. But if there's potential in the long run to grow with organization, you absolutely should be asking yourself that question and whether it's going to be a fit for you. I started with NACE, the National Association for Catering and Events, and I started with them in their inaugural chapter here in Richmond. I was really thrilled to be asked to be on the board very early on. In those first few meetings, I mean, we were all just kind of learning how to put on NACE meetings, so this was new for all of us. If I had judged it on just the first couple of meetings, I don't think that would have been fair, but I looked at the value of being on the board, connecting with a national organization, and really wanted a long-term relationship with them. And, NACE has been in Richmond, we've been around for about 5, maybe 6 years now, and at this point, I'm actually the education chair for the national conference. And so I didn't get that on day 2, it took a long time to get to that point to be able to run a committee like that. But I saw potential early on, and I would absolutely encourage you to consider as well is looking at it and saying, can this be more for me in the long run? Next, it's time to cut back on the chatter. And if you guys were in front of me right now, I would hold up as a prop. I have the old newspaper, the Winter Chronicle from my high school. And not to brag, but I won most talkative for the my entire class. But I also won in the 8th grade for my entire elementary school as well. And so I have a long history of being noted for pretty much talking too much. And so to actually come up here and say, oh yeah, you should definitely cut back on the chatter, people find that very surprising, especially in the world of PR, because PR people are often, considered folks who go and, we're just chatting all the time and we're pitching. It's like you might as well put a megaphone in our hands. But Ivan, he actually founded BNI, Ivan Meisner, said you have 2 ears and 1 mouth and you should use them accordingly. And it's very true. The fact is, when I go to networking, I really don't speak much. I don't give out my business cards, which I know goes against everything you've probably read about. Instead, I go in and spark conversations. I have set goals. I have an idea who my target audience, who is going to be there. And then what I do, essentially, is I get to know other people. I get this question all the time, well, how in the world do you get a conversation started? There is no magical answer. You honestly, at the end of the day, just be yourself. For me, I really actually thought about this. I did a little bit of brainstorming, and I thought, what are some openers that I've had for networking events that have actually led to real relationships? I've complimented people, truly, if I like someone's necklace, their dress, their bag, or whatever, that's sometimes a good start. If it is at a particular venue, I might be like, oh, is this your first time at the Jefferson Hotel, Dover Hall, yada, yada. Food, beverage, people love talking in the bar line if the food's spectacular, or heck, if the food is not spectacular, something to talk about. Could be as easy as, mind if I join you? I know it's intimidating. You get a big group of people and you think, oh, I don't want to have to, what am I going to do? I don't want to stand on the outside of it. Just ask them, mind if I join you? Even if they're not entirely friendly, they're not going to say no to you. So you can always excuse yourself a couple of minutes later. One of my best ones is simply saying, hi, my name is, and just introducing myself. I often walk up to people who maybe don't have someone else that they're talking with. Or likewise, I have no problem going up and being like, hey, I don't know anyone here, so I thought I would just say hello and come introduce myself. It's a little self-deprecating, but I don't mind a little bit of humor there and just say, hey, I'd like to introduce myself. So again, no magic answer on that. Just be yourself at the end of the day. It's so important to do that. So as we do that, next, time to get out of the mindset of what can this person do for me, and ask yourself, what can I do for this person? The best people I have met across you name the industry, the best people I've met have one thing in common. They're never thinking about themselves. They're always thinking about how they can connect other people. I'll give you examples. So I swear half of the wedding industry in Richmond uses my car mechanic. Why? Because I adore my car mechanic. I have the best company I work with in town. I've been there 12 years. Anytime I'm at a group and something like, oh, my car's in the shop, and I'll say, oh, do you like your car person? They'll say no, inevitably, and I'll say, I've got a great guy. I'll send it over to you. Anything you can do to start becoming the resource is what's really going to help you stand out in the crowd. I always make sure that I'm completely listening. If someone has a problem, I try to solve it. I try to connect them with the right person to help them solve it. I don't want to be known as Megan, the wedding PR person, when I go to networking. I want to be known as Megan, the person who helped me out with this. Because the PR stuff will come later. I'm never worried about that. But if I get in the mindset of what can I do for this person, I'm constantly looking for cues to be able to assist, and people aren't afraid to ask for help, then you absolutely take that with them. I'd say this is one of my number one tips. Actually, it's essentially a good attitude. It's kind of called the give-give attitude instead of the give-take. At the end of the day, it will absolutely come back and help you down the road. Next, there are worse things than being rejected. So this is a little bit of real talk here for a second, but I remember working with, I went to this event, I would say gosh, I would say about 3 or 4 years ago. So it was before I really hit kind of the national speaking and writing. I was just getting started on that side of things. And I went to an event it was a retreat, and it was very different than the type of networking I go to. I usually go to a lot of industry-based kind of businessy conferences. And this was a retreat. It was meant to be very laid back. It was, I don't know, it was just more time to chat with people, a lot of small business creatives. It's just a different scene than I'm used to. And so the first night before I had spoken, they had like a collective dinner people went to, and I sat down with this couple. I was eager to sit with them because they were in the region. I loved their business model, and they just seemed like nice people. And the whole time I talked to them, the wife's eyes like went over my head. I mean, she didn't look me in the eye the whole time. And we sat there for an hour. She was always looking for someone better. The guy was really nice, but he was really busy, like ordering extra desserts and things for some of the other tables, which also had speakers, probably more well-known speakers as well. And so, I gave myself 3 or 4 minutes to be unhappy about it. Like in my head, I thought, this stinks. I flew down here. I'm going to do a good job tomorrow. I'm confident in what I'm doing, but they're kind of treating me like, well, you're not as interesting as yada yada who spoke today. But, at the end of the day, it's not productive to remain upset about that. Give yourself 5 minutes to be unhappy about the situation and then move on from it. There are worse things than that. The fact is, they're just not your tribe. That's what it means at the end of the day. They are just not meant to be in your tribe. You will find other people. And as soon as I realized that later that evening, because it was kind of a blow. You're like, God, I still have to speak, and that's how they were treating me. But at the end of the day, I found my tribe. I have found and continue to add people who are a better fit for my brand. And what's funny is recently I ran into this couple again, and I'm like, headlining some conference stuff, and I'm writing more. People know me a little bit more. It's like they were all hugs. So suddenly I became an interesting person, like to talk to, which for me, of course, I was very nice about the situation. And, for me, I was, very nice about the situation, but at the end of the day, I just said, I'll remain nice about it, but this is at the end of the day not going to be worth my time to be upset about, and I'll be nice and move on from it. And I think what it did is it really taught me how to treat other people as well. You just never know. You just be kind to everybody. So just be upset about it if you want it for a few minutes, just be like, oh, that stinks, but move on from it. Don't disregard a networking event because there's a few bad seeds who are going to be there as well. Just be careful with that. Also, the attendee rut. I hear this a lot. People say, oh, there's just not anything out there for me to attend. And listen, I'm talking to the folks in town or people I'm talking to in the webinar here who have been out there maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25 years. And I get it. You go to the networking events, you go to the association stuff, and you just want something different. What I would advise you to consider doing is creating your own opportunities. And I'm actually going to give you a couple examples of what I do. So for me, some of the big things that are done in town, I can't do a lot during the day because I really just need to focus on staff and getting work done. And there's not a strong enough ROI for me to go to everything. And then some of the evenings are hard because a lot of people in the wedding industry, we network on Tuesday, Thursday. Those are really strong days. Well, the problem is that's when I go to other associations and speak. So I miss a lot of the local stuff because I'm busy speaking at other association meetings. And so for me, especially after the first quarter of each year, after I do a lot of conferences, I start to be like, I start to feel a little funny. I'm like, I'd love to see more Richmond people. I haven't seen people in a while. I start to get self-conscious about it. So I essentially started creating opportunities for myself. So this actually happened probably 2 weeks ago in my living room. So I had just come back from a bunch of traveling, and it was very clear to me that Snapchat is like the new thing, and that's incredibly intimidating to me, the idea of having to learn more social media, but it's important because, we're focused on the wedding industry, couples, they are historically in their 20s and 30s. We want to make sure that we meet their needs. And so what I did is, you can see the gentleman on the left, Kyle, I brought him in. He's a former student of mine at VCU, and I had him teach Snapchat. So what I did is I belonged to a Facebook group of Richmond Wedding Pros. I said, all right, guys, I have room for 15 people in my living room. Like, that's all the room I have. I would love to see if anyone wants to come and learn Snapchat. It will be an hour. I'll bring bagels. I'll have coffee. And it will just keep it easy. It's free. Just come. And we sold out, for lack of a better word, in about 10 minutes. And we filled the spot, and everyone had, they were very excited about it. Everyone came in. We got bagels delivered by the local bagel guy. I poured an extra couple, pots of coffee. It was super easy. It was really great chance to see some of my friends. It was only about an hour, easy cleanup. And so that was a really great way to put a group together instead of waiting for someone to cover Snapchat and education. Instead, I brought it to us. I made it pretty easy. Also, another thing, and this is one of my favorite things I do, I actually host a pancake day every day, again, at my house. I keep it easy. I think I just have it at my house so I can wear whatever I want, not have to put on shoes and be dressed up. And so Pancake Day is very popular overseas, and some of my friends in Ireland, they think it's like practically a national holiday. And when I realized all you do is eat pancakes all day, I was like, well, we should be doing that in Richmond. And so what I do is it's an open invitation for people to come to my house and come for Pancake Day. We've had as many as 70 people, which, spoiler alert, I can't fit 70 people in my house, so they have to go in the backyard. But it doesn't get much cheaper than being able to have people come in and just have coffee, and then I buy flour and sugar and eggs for pancakes. I do hire a few students because it's gotten a little bit bigger to come make the pancakes, but I mean, literally, I think it starts at like 11, takes an hour and a half to set up. People are there for a couple hours and we break down, and it's just a great opportunity for people to come over. Now, I'm not suggesting you invite 70 people to your house, but you could do if you're looking to do a mastermind group. What's stopping you from doing a mastermind group? If you are looking, we'll talk about brown bagging actually after conferences in a few minutes. If you're looking to do, in our industry, a bunch of the wedding planners get together for drinks like once a quarter or something along those lines. I mean, there are things you can be doing to make your own networking when you don't find the best fit for you. So keep that in mind. So here are your networking to-dos that I want you to consider as you make your way into new opportunities. And really, before I even get into this, I can't stress enough the importance of trying everything out and also really having a clear idea of what your goals are. I'd be remiss if I didn't share the fact is you have to have goals in order to build a roadmap for your career, whatever that's going to be, whether you're launching your own business, whether, again, you're building the corporate ladder, you're exploring what your options are, know what your goals are before you even consider networking. Next, I want you to Insta differently. Now, if you're not on Instagram, that's not a fit for you, that's fine. I could mean any social media. I find for my audience that Instagram is where we do most of our engagement, but there's Facebook and Twitter, there's LinkedIn, there's, Pinterest, I don't know how much I've got out, there's Snapchat. But I'm going to poke fun at Instagram for a second just because it's a big part of my industry. So Instagram is where everyone gets connected, and most of the events that I go to will have a hashtag. So first and foremost, know what the event hashtag is going to be, or maybe the association handle is going to be. That's step one. Next is be a part of that conversation. And there's a fine line. I don't want you looking down at your phone 50 times while you're networking. You really want to keep your phone away while you're doing that. But what you're going to want to do is grab the hashtag and start adding to the conversation. One of the things that drives me bonkers, so I'm going to make fun for a second. I went to WeddingWire World. I spoke there in February, and there was a hashtag everyone was using. And I put this picture up on the big screen and said, guys, I know that you want to put very pretty things on Instagram, but doing a picture of like a fake desk or a perfect looking desk with adding the hashtag, that does nothing to the conversation, nor does a picture of you in an outfit that you're wearing, unless it's a very creative, unique, particularly striking outfit. If you're going to the Met Gala, fine, post your dress, but otherwise, you don't want to post any of that. Instead, think differently. Think, how can I catch people's attention before I even step into the networking event? For me, kind of going back to WeddingWire World for a second, I was doing a lot of prep. It was the first time I'd ever been put in front of this huge group of 2,000 people, which is, yes, it's incredibly intimidating, measure to think about. And what I did was, no lie, just because there's just not enough time in the day. I mentioned having a 3-year-old. I took his bathtub crayons and I took all the points of the presentation. I wrote them all over the bathtub. So when I showered, I could practice, which it was pretty funny. My husband first saw it and thought it was like some sort of grocery list or something. I'm like, nope, this is where I'm practicing. So I thought it was funny enough that I took a picture of it and I put it with the hashtag, and people did see it and remark on it later. It was one way to really lend in the conversation, something funny, something different to catch people before I even stepped on premise. But make sure you are engage ahead of time, share your enthusiasm. Just make sure that you don't engage too much on social media while you're on site, because you want to make sure you're connecting with actual human beings while you're there. There is a fine line. Next, be the one who makes the introduction at least once. One of the best things you can be doing at a networking event is making sure that you introduce one person to another. Remember, we talk about listening, finding what problems are out there. If someone says, oh, I really want to meet X, and X is coming later and you know them, make the introduction. Say, this is someone you definitely want to speak with. When I go to national conferences, often I'll have friends from different areas of the country, and so I'll make introductions if they make sense to do that. But be that person, be the connector. Ask yourself, how can I get more involved? If you find a spot or an association, a meeting, an event, something regular that has potential, ask yourself, what level can I dedicate myself to? What can I be doing? You don't have to go from just a passive attendee to being on the board of directors. There are committees. Maybe you can oversee X, Y, and Z. They can have special projects. But find a way, once you find something that might be a fit, how you can get more visibility, because attending and meeting people is not enough. I usually say with networking, if you could meet 2, maybe 3 decent contacts max at a networking event, you've done a good job. It's going to take a long time to actually meet everybody over the years. So instead, ask yourself, is there something I can be doing to volunteer my time, to sit on a committee, et cetera, to help increase your visibility and really help expedite meeting new people. Next, follow up with contacts as soon as you get home. And it'll give you bonus points. We talked about the educational component. If you go to something and there is a speaker, it's so funny how many times people don't follow up with the speaker because they're intimidated to do that. Someone really does a great job on when it comes to their speaking, something resonates. I love hearing from people. I've had people write me and say, hey, I like your talk. Here's a book that I read that I think you might like as well. Like, those sort of things are just really great ways to stay connected. But we're used to collecting business cards at events. The networking starts there, but really the relationship building happens right after the event. The worst thing you do is take those cards, put them in a bag, and forget about them. And listen, I've been just as guilty for doing that myself. It's sometimes terrible. I get so annoyed with myself sometimes, and I'm like, where did that go? And I can't remember who the card is. But what you want to do is this. You want to grab your cards. You want to write them within 1 to 2 business days, period. And, if you go to an event on a Thursday and you don't have time to write till Monday, that's fine. But make sure you reach out to the people, refresh their memory, who they were. We'll go through a few to-dos in a second. And again, if you were in a position where you can help them with something, this is where you follow up and do that. I'll write someone and say, oh, yeah, it was great connecting with you. You mentioned you did a mechanic, just want to follow up and give you the name of the person. People appreciate that. That's a good way to kind of ping people and connect with them more. So some follow-up tips. Review any and all notes. Typically what I try to do is have a pen somewhere. If I get a business card, again, I tend to do most of the collecting of cards. I don't hand out a lot of cards. And I'll take little notes to remind me, like, oh, she works in this division. We have a mutual friend, Bob. Anything that will remind me what the connection was, and if I promise to follow up with anything. Do a little online snooping. I have no problem with you meeting Amy Smith and then looking her up and just seeing what she's all about. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to share everything you know with Amy once you've had a chance to chat with her, but just get to know these people a little bit more online. I especially do that working with the media. I tend to take a look at some of the places that they've been writing and whatnot. Also connect with them. LinkedIn or social media. In my market, I tend to follow people on Instagram, and at this point, I actually connect with most people on Facebook as well. So whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you use for business, go ahead and connect with people there. Send brief, prompt emails. Hey, Amy, it was great chatting with you last week at the blah, 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 blah event. Just want to take a moment to follow up. I'm going to take you up on your offer to go out for coffee. What does this Wednesday look like for you? P.S. I remember you mentioning that you needed a mechanic recommendation. Here's a great person I thought could be a fit for you. Jog their memory, make sure they remember how they met you, and just make sure at the end of the day you have a purpose. If you're going to spend the time networking, meeting people, and then following up with them, you have to make sure, again, it gets you back to the goals that we've talked about, whether it's for your career, whether it's for finding a job, whether it's a small business and you're looking to grow in a particular way. Whatever you do, you just have to make sure that you have a purpose to it, because otherwise you're just throwing things against the wall to see what sticks, and frankly, that's a waste of time and money as well. Also, for the larger things, consider brown bagging it. So I talked about the idea of hosting things yourself, and I'm sure not everyone in the audience loves the idea of creating 150 pancakes for people. I totally get that. So you can start a lot smaller, which is actually what we did as well. So what brown bagging means essentially is if you come back from a conference, like we have in the past, and a lot of your local friends weren't able to make it, allies in the industry, offer to get together and talk about the conference and some of the takeaways that you've had. Actually, it's something that we did in 2011. My first industry conference was WeddingWire at Las Vegas. And there was actually about 7 or 8 of us who went that year, which is a really large group for Richmond. Well, I got with the folks and said, hey guys, why don't we, because so many people wanted to go, and it's just not always, you can't always book a trip like that and just head off. And so I said, why don't we do some sort of like brown bag afterwards? We'll grab a spot and we'll invite anyone who wants to come, and we'll just talk about the conference and some of our big takeaways. And we ended up using Classic Party Rentals of Virginia, which is a local rental company. They have a huge warehouse, threw out some tables and chairs. They're very gracious to lend us their space. Everyone brought their own food. It probably took only about 90 minutes. I mean, everyone has lunch every day, so it didn't take up people's time. It was a good chance to connect with everyone locally and be like, hey, these are the big takeaways and what have you. So brown bag it, consider doing something like that. Also, incredibly important, find a way to capture return on investment, because we talk about all the keys to qualifying and networking and all that, but at the end of the day, and also the goals as well, at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you truly understand if you're getting a return on investment for the networking you're doing. Now, if your goal is to book more business, and I'm kind of talking to the small business owners, the folks in sales and marketing right now, any prospect who comes in the door, you should be asking how they heard about you, whether it's through a contact form on your site, whether it's simply a conversation that you have. If this is completely the opposite, maybe you're looking for a new job, then continue to take notes post-event. Keep a notebook of things you're going to and what wins have resulted from going to these things, because it's not always going to be about booking new business. When I started the Richmond Bridal Association, I mean, that was a really long relationship I had, and it didn't always lead to new business, but it did lead to an increase in awareness about my own personal brand, helped me find new jobs over time. So make sure you take notes and take notes carefully when it comes to that. So I want to finish off with one of my favorite quotes from my very favorite business book. Your network is your net worth by Keith Ferrazzi. Now, when I first started OFD, I started 2 years earlier than expected, and so I had to pull from savings to actually start my business, and I could really only set aside, I needed the other money to live off of, and so I only had about $600 to start my business, so funds were really tight. And I went to have coffee with my friend Nina Wilton, who is also Classic Party Rentals, and she said, Megan, your network is your net worth. You and your value is tied into who you know, like who your tribe is, what your tribe evolved into. And so she told me, go ahead and buy Never Eat Alone. Now, again, I have no money, but when Nina Whittleton tells you to do something in our town, you just do it because she's brilliant and you want to learn that. And so for me, what we ended up doing is I read the book and I thought, this is my life. This is my life, but someone else wrote it. And it's just the idea of, again, never eat alone. We're going to eat all our meals. Why don't you invite someone to go with you? Why don't you create opportunities to network with people? It's very much based on relationship marketing, and it is wonderful. So I highly recommend. It doesn't matter if you're right out of school, if you are 2 minutes from retiring, you should absolutely, or somewhere in between, make sure that you read Never Eat Alone. And actually today, we'll be giving the book away. I love giving this book away. We've actually picked someone in the audience. What we did is we got the list of attendees. We used, I think it was random.com or random.org to pick a random person in the group. And so I believe the name, and I may have to have Kelly correct me on this, excuse me, Julie Lukeman. So Julie, if you're in the audience still, we'll get connected. My contact information is here. Drop me a line with your address, and I will mail you a copy right away. You just have to promise you read it. So here's my contact information. If you want to stay in touch, my website, email, great way to find me on social media. If you guys have any questions about networking, any interest, of course, if you have interest in PR, event industry, reach out to me. I always love hearing from fellow Dukes. So thank you so much for having me. And Kelly, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, Megan, thank you so much. At this point, we do have a little bit of time for any questions right here and now. So if you had any questions that you wanted to ask Megan while she's still here, you can use the Q&A section of the webinar to punch in your question. So while you guys are thinking about any questions that you might have, I also had a question. Megan, I am always struggling with remembering people's names. So I didn't know if maybe you had any tips for how to remember people.
Oh my gosh, I am the worst at remembering names myself. So it's kind of funny you asked that, because I'm like, oh gosh. I wish I could with that. So for me, at least I find that it's having that repeat exposure. So I grab their card, and the best thing, because I'm terrible at faces, I don't know what my problem is with that. And so I look them up on social media almost immediately. If it's something that you really want to connect with, not to be too creepy, but taking a screenshot of them, saving it, setting it aside so you can just remember what they're looking like, and if there's any sort of features. Like, I love when someone's a redhead, because I'm like, yes, I'm totally going to remember who this is now. Something that stands out that's a little bit different. But I find repeat exposure is going to be looking them up online. Other than that, I wish I had better advice on it, because I, too, I run up to people and somebody will say, I don't know if you just have me, Kelly, but they'll say, oh, I'll start to say, it's nice to meet you. And they'll say, oh, it's nice to see you again. So now I just say, oh, it's so great to see you. Like, that's my, general, in case I somehow missed remembering that person. So that's like my one-liner when it comes to that.
Yes, that is a great point. Good answer there. Okay, it looks like we have another question actually from our book winner, Julie. Do you have any tips for reaching out to folks you haven't connected with in a while? For example, a professor you haven't spoken to in a few years, or an old coworker, somebody you haven't talked to in a while?
Sure. First of all, go for it. Whatever you do, absolutely 100% go for it, because people generally love reconnecting. I mean, right with a purpose, obviously. If it's as simple as you just want to reach out to a professor and say, hey, just want to take a moment to reach out, connect with you again, wanted to thank you. I still use a lot from what you taught me in my classes. I mean, there's no problem with doing that. I think the hardest part is just going out and doing it. But I have found that almost 100% of the time, reconnecting with media, professors, as long as I have a purpose, and it's more about them than about me. I think that's the one thing you have to be very careful with, is it can't be about you. You don't want to reach out. Now, I've reached out to media before, and I just want to reconnect and see how they're doing, but I don't do any pitches for the first, 3 emails. I mean, I don't want to make it about me. Instead, it's about, yeah, I just wanted to stay in touch and see what you're up to. But the hardest part is just pulling the trigger on it, because what's the worst that's going to happen? So, yeah, have a purpose, make it about them, to the best of your ability, and just do it, and do it via email. Catching people on phone can get tricky.
Okay, great. And it looks like we have another question. Richard says he uses a NeatDesk scanner to scan business cards after he attends networking events. NeatDesk imports into Outlook. He's wondering if you use a contact management system like Salesforce or ACT to organize your network contacts, or maybe it's ACT. I'm not familiar with that program, but ACT or ACT.
That's a great question. We've actually, and Richard, thank you for asking. I haven't used NewDesk before, but what we've done is we've used Circleback and also Scan business cards. And then so for me, because I'm in the world of PR, it's a little bit different. We use, believe it or not, we actually use BuzzStream, which BuzzStream is meant for public relations, like for media contacts, because those are the people I'm usually trying to stay in touch with at the end of the day. So BuzzStream has worked well for me. I've had clients who use Salesforce who've absolutely loved it. But for me, I've actually been hopping around to a few different phone apps because I just find it's just easy to have something like that readily available at the end of the day. But that's typically how I stay in touch with people. And then that's also why I try very quickly, as soon as I grab their cards, I add people on social media as well, because they're always, I know this is like the lazy man's approach, but they're always going to be there. If worse comes to worse, if I lose someone's card and I remember it's Bob, I can type in Bob and I know they're going to be there. And relatively easy to catch. But for me, BuzzStream is what we use, just because we're a PR company.
Great. Well, we might have time for maybe just one or two more questions. If anybody else has any more questions, type those into the Q&A real quick. Megan, I had one more question. I was just wondering if you have had success in connecting with your fellow Dukes, if you have found that to prove useful in your networking time.
Absolutely. So in what I've found, it's so funny, it's all a matter about making the opportunities yourself. I found now, when I first got out of school, I actually did a lot. I did a fair amount. Like I would go to the Richmond JMU chapter stuff, and admittedly, I need to do more of that. But I had to cut back once I'm going to blame my little one real quick with that. But I still wanted to find a way to stay connected. And so what I did, it actually goes back to Julie's question. I reached out to former professors of mine, one that I really particularly admired, and said, hey, wanted to reach out, because when I was in SCOM, some of the best learning points were when people from, who were former, they were JMU alum who came in, former students, and would share like what they were up to now. And so I wrote a bunch of professors and said, hey, want to reach out. If you ever need a speaker for your class, I'd love to be considered. And I caught him up on what I was doing and told him why it was so important to me, because it was, when I was a student, I really enjoyed it. And so believe it or not, and a few people took me up on it. Actually, Corey Hickerson, he was amazing. He had me come in a bunch of times. And as a result of that, I've been able to connect with juniors, seniors, recent graduates. We've hired a bunch of them. I've had so much luck with that, because I find at the end of the day, JMU people want to help JMU people. I mean, that's just the end of it. I mean, we all love JMU, and we all want to help each other. And so I made my own opportunities that better fit my schedule. But I always tell people this: don't hesitate to ever reach out with people. Reach out to an alumni. Let's say it's somebody who's at a company that you'd love to work for, and just see if you can pick their brain. Explain that you went to JMU. You've got one of the biggest things with networking is making sure that you find some sort of connector, and you've already got one built in when it's fellow alum. So, absolutely.
Awesome.
Great question.
Well, thank you, Megan. It looks like we don't have any more questions right now, but definitely, make sure that you take Megan up on her offer. If you have any other questions later, feel free to reach out and contact her. But it was a great webinar today. Megan, thank you for reminding us how important relationships really are. And, I think there's always time to freshen up on our networking skills. I've been a professional fundraiser for 13 years now, and I still get nervous when I'm networking. So thank you for the refresher today. And on behalf of the JMU Alumni Association, just thank you for your time and your presentation.
Of course.
And as Megan mentioned, in terms of, your fellow Dukes are always a great place to start with networking. That's a great opportunity for us to plug our series of networking events coming up over the next month. We'll be all over the country and online, so please check out alumni.jmu.edu/networking-month for more information. And Megan actually will be joining us at one of those events as a panelist, so don't miss out on your opportunity to meet her in person. And we also hope you'll join us for our next webinar, which is Strategies for Living File-Free with Evernote, presented by JMU alumna Stacy Harmon on Thursday, June 16th at noon Eastern Time. And also, if you or someone you know is interested in presenting a webinar, you can contact me at snowka@jmu.edu or reach out to anybody within the alumni office, and we'll be glad to help you. So thanks again for participating, and hope you guys have a great afternoon.